The chains of heaven. They came from the stars in silver arcs, luminous and terrible. The Eleutheri called themselves gods, not metaphorically, not symbolically. Gods in the truest sense, perfect, eternal, divine. Humanity, they declared, was a wayward creation, a race too unruly to be trusted with autonomy. So they descended upon earth with blazing light and quiet fury, and the world bowed before them. Some bowed willingly. Most did not. Captain Jalen Thorne had watched his fleet burn in orbit over Mars. It had been a warning, a single act of divine retribution for Defiance. The ISS Dauntless, his ship, had been the last to fall. When he woke in a medbay weeks later, the war was over. The surrender was signed. His command was revoked. Now, he built docking clamps on Orbital Platform 17. The platform hung like a wound above the ruins of Singapore, humming with silent obedience. Eleutheri sentinels floated between levels, living statues of light and glass. One passed Thorne now, scanning the worksite. He didn't flinch. He'd learned not to look at them too long. Their eyes weren't just for seeing. They knew you when they looked at you. Thorne wiped grease from his hands and turned away. Behind him, a soft sound like a gasp. He pivoted. A child had stepped beyond the red boundary line. The Eleutheri sentinel hovered closer. "No," Thorne muttered. His boots hit the floor before his thoughts caught up. The child's mother screamed, racing forward. The sentinel's limbs opened, revealing a sphere of pulsing white. Non-lethal, but still cruel. A burst of neural agony, designed to paralyze, to teach. Thorne reached them first. He wrapped his arms around the girl and dove across the line just as the burst fired. Pain lashed his back. Nerves flared like firecrackers, and he collapsed, shielding her. The sentinel paused, as if confused, then floated away. Thorne lay still for a moment, breathing hard. The mother wept thanks, clutching her daughter. A few workers gathered, whispering. "You could have been killed," someone said. Thorne stood slowly. "They only kill when they want others to see." He left before more words could be spoken. He didn't want to be seen as a hero. Heroes didn't live long under Eleutheri rule. His quarters were a metal box with a bunk and a blinking comms unit. As he sat, it chirped. He stared at it. The unit hadn't worked in months, sabotaged, or so he'd told himself. But now it blinked. A new message. J. Thorne, if you're reading this, then Aegis is still alive. Come to Titan. Freedom breathes. No signature. No encryption. Just a whisper in the dark. Thorne leaned back, heart pounding. Aegis. A ghost. A myth. The last desperate project before surrender. A human-built warship infused with stolen Eleutheri tech. Half ship, half AI. A weapon they'd never finished. Rumors said it had been destroyed when the Antarctic lab fell. But if it had survived, Thorne's hands trembled. Not from fear. From hope. A feeling he'd buried deep under duty and grief. He closed his eyes and saw again the Dauntless breaking apart above Mars. His crew, his friends, torn in a fire. The Eleutheri had called it a cleansing. He remembered the broadcast, one of them speaking with a voice like chimes and thunder. Humanity was never meant to rule itself. You are children, and children need gods. Thorne stood. Not anymore. The next day, he requested leave, citing stress, fatigue, old wounds. The Eleutheri approved it instantly. They didn't see him as a threat. Not anymore. He took a shuttle from Orbital 17 to Ganymede, then a transport to Saturn's orbit. Every stop brought more eyes, more scanners. He kept his head down, wore old clothes, adopted a limp. At each checkpoint, he wondered, is this the moment they remember who I am? But the Eleutheri never flinched. Their records were perfect, their systems flawless. But they made one mistake. They'd let him live. He arrived on Titan in a storm. The facility was hidden beneath the ice, an old mining hub reactivated by rebels. When the door opened, he was greeted by a face he hadn't seen in years. "Commander," said Mara Voss, former engineer of the Dauntless. Her voice cracked with disbelief. "You actually came." Thorne looked past her into the dimly lit corridor. It buzzed with activity, voices, tools, life. He stepped forward. "I heard a ship's still breathing." Mara smiled. "Aegis is more than breathing. She's waiting. Thorne felt it then. A spark. A pulse in his blood. Something long dormant awakening. Not a hero, he reminded himself. Just a soldier who's had enough. But deep inside, a voice whispered, "Let the gods remember what it means to fear." Embers of Defiance. The hangar bay was nothing like Thorne remembered. The last time he stood in one, it had been aboard the Dauntless, shining and vast. Now, rust and shadows filled the underground Titan facility. But what lived inside this darkness stirred something deeper than nostalgia. A ship, unfinished, raw, monstrous in silhouette, rested in the cradle of the dock. She was angular and black, with alien curves fused into human steel. Elethary energy cores pulsed faintly at her heart. Her hull shimmered with a cloaking layer of adaptive armor. "She's beautiful," Thorne said softly. Mara Voss grinned beside him. "We call her Aegis. She's ours. Every inch. You built this under their noses. Started it during the war. Finished it in the shadows." She walked ahead, voice echoing. "You're not the first to come looking for purpose, Jalen. Just the one we waited for." They entered the command deck, still unpowered, but alive with potential. Makeshift terminals, holographic nodes, exposed fiber conduits. A blend of desperation and genius. "We've got maybe a dozen qualified crew," Mara continued. 2 AI engineers. Weapons tech from an Elethary salvage op. No backup. No escape route. Thorne ran his fingers along the console. "Sound familiar?" She looked at him, eyes suddenly serious. "We need a captain. I'm not that man anymore. You're if you stepped on that shuttle. You're if you're standing here." He didn't respond. But inside, something cracked. Not broken, open. The following days blurred into movement. Simulations, tests, system checks. Thorne fell into rhythm like a man relearning how to breathe. There was joy in it. Purpose. Humanity, raw and defiant. But the shadows weren't empty. During a routine systems check, an anomaly surfaced. Encrypted Elethary code embedded in a maintenance subroutine. Someone had planted a beacon. A silent pulse, reaching out. "Sabotage. We have a mole," Mara said, slamming her fist against the terminal. Thorne stared at the code, lips tight. "They know we're alive now." It was too late to shut Aegis down. The beacon had already sent its signal. They had days at most. "Prep her for launch," Thorne ordered. "We move now." The mood shifted. What had been cautious hope turned into frantic urgency. Fuel lines were flushed. Cryotubes were sealed. Final calibrations were rushed through sleepless hours. During a lull, Mara found Thorne in the observation corridor, watching the stars. "They'll be coming with cruisers," she said. "Scouts, if we're lucky. A dreadnought, if we're not." Thorne didn't look away. "How many do you think will follow us if we make it out?" "Depends what we show them." He turned then. "If they see a ship, that's one thing. But if they see a victory, they'll remember who they are. Not children. Not subjects. Not lesser." Thorne nodded. "Then we don't just survive. We strike." The Elethary came on the third day. One scout ship, sleek and predatory. It dropped from orbit like a blade. The facility had minutes. "We won't outrun it," Mara warned. "We're not going to." Thorne stood in the central bay as klaxons blared. Around him, crew moved with quiet fear. He activated the intercom. "This is Captain Thorne. If you're hearing this, you know what's coming. The Elethary believe we've forgotten how to resist. That fear keeps us loyal." He paused. "Let's remind them we were never loyal. We were waiting." Aegis roared to life. The launch was chaos. Explosions thundered behind them as the hangar crumbled under energy fire. Aegis shot upward through the ice like a spear, breaching Titan's atmosphere in a shockwave. The Elethary scout gave chase, weapons locking on. "Incoming," shouted Mara. "Deploy ghost field. Evasive pattern Sigma." The ship vanished from sensors, dipping into Saturn's rings, scattering debris in its wake. The enemy opened fire blindly, ripping through nothing. Thorne waited, breath steady. Now! Aegis burst from the shadow of a frozen moon, torpedoes launching in silence. The scout fractured, imploding in violet flame. Human victory. Small, but undeniable. Silence returned. Thorne sat in the captain's chair for the first time. Fully. Completely. No pretense. You sure you're ready for this? Mara asked beside him. No, he said. But I'm here. She smiled. Then let's begin. He looked ahead. Beyond Saturn, there were signals, faint transmissions, coded messages, whispers across colonies. Rumors of resistance flaring again. His name was among them. The blasphemer, the Eleutheri now called him. He smiled. Send a broadcast, he said. Tell them Aegis lives. Tell them we're not done. Outside the viewport, the stars shimmered like embers waiting for wind. And Thorne would be the firestorm. Storm before the dawn. In the quiet reaches beyond Saturn, Aegis became a myth. She struck in silence, disabling Eleutheri comm relays, disrupting supply lines, freeing human prisoners from orbital labor camps. The High Priestess of the Eleutheri declared Thorne a heretic across every frequency. But to the people, he was something else. A symbol. A reckoning. The blasphemer who dared defy gods. Across the outer colonies, rebellion ignited like wildfire. Old factions reunited. Scientists, smugglers, former officers, all drawn to a single frequency. Freedom breathes. But the fire drew attention. And gods never watched their temples burn without response. They came in waves. The Eleutheri launched a crusade, cleansing fleets armed not just with weapons, but propaganda. They hijacked broadcasts, showing images of shattered rebel outposts. Glorious reassertions of divine order. On board Aegis, Thorne stood at the center of a growing storm. We've lost communication with Vesta Station, Mara reported, her voice grim. No distress call. No survivors on scan. Thorne nodded, jaw tight. They're making examples. A junior officer, Kessler, slammed his hand against the console. Why aren't we hitting them harder? We have the firepower. Thorne stared at him. You want to burn them down? I want to win. So do I, Thorne said. But we don't become monsters to defeat them. He left the command deck to silence. But in the shadows behind him, doubt took root. The pressure grew with every battle. Aegis began carrying more than weapons. She carried grief. Some missions failed. Ships were lost. Names were added to the wall outside the mess hall. Late one night, Mara found Thorne in the strategy chamber, surrounded by flickering holograms of possible strike targets. You're not sleeping, she said. He didn't look up. They're gaining ground. Every day, we lose a node, they cut a dozen systems off from hope. You're not alone in this. He finally turned, and in his eyes, weariness. But something else too. Determination sharpened by pain. They don't see us as equals, Mara. Not even as enemies. Just broken tools. If we don't show them what we are, we will, she said softly. Together. Then came the worst blow. Aegis was ambushed near Cygnus Outpost, an Eleutheri interceptor disguised as a refugee vessel. The rebels brought it aboard, trusting the signal. It detonated in the hangar. 23 dead. Engines crippled. The ship adrift. And among the dead, Lieutenant Kessler. But not before he confessed. He was the saboteur, Mara said, voice shaking. He believed surrender was our only hope. Said we'd provoke extinction. Thorne stood by the broken viewport, looking out into the stars. He believed in fear more than freedom. A pause. Don't we all sometimes? They limped to the asteroid city of Oria's Prime. Neutral space, riddled with spies and drifters. Repairs began immediately, but the crew morale was shattered. Some questioned Thorne's judgment. Others questioned the rebellion itself. So he called a meeting. In a makeshift mess hall, every soul aboard gathered. Thorne stood on a crate, eyes sweeping across them. I'm not here to promise victory or survival. I can't give you those. He paused. But I can tell you what they fear. Silence. They don't fear our guns or our ships. They fear our choice, our refusal to kneel, to worship, to obey. His voice rose. If that's all we have, our choice to fight, to be human, then that's enough. It has to be. He stepped down, and slowly they stood with him. By the time Aegis launched again, she wasn't just a ship. She was a flag. More rebel vessels answered the call. Fragments of once defeated fleets. Converted mining rigs turned into gunships. Even alien defectors, fringe species long subjugated by the Eleutheri, offered intel. Then came a whisper from a deep space scout. We found it. The Eleutheri's command node. Their central neural relay. We strike it, we sever their hold over the network. Thorne leaned forward. Where? A star system cloaked in twin suns, Tyranni's void. Ancient, hostile, guarded by an entire fleet. A suicide mission, unless you believed in something stronger than odds. In the war room, the crew gathered one last time before departure. Mara projected the map. We drop in from the blind side. Jam the quantum lattice. Aegis leads the charge. If we hit the relay hard and fast, we give every rebel across the galaxy a fighting chance, Thorne finished. He looked around. I won't order you into hell. You can walk away. No judgment. No one moved. Then Mara grinned. Captain, if you're going to punch a god in the mouth, you're going to need a bigger crew. Laughter. Nervous but real. Thorne smiled. Then load the guns. As Aegis accelerated into deep space, toward the place where stars went to die, Thorne stood alone on the bridge. He opened a private channel. No audience. No broadcast. Just a whisper. We are not afraid of you. Outside, the twin sons of Tyrannies waited. And so did the gods. The fall of gods. The Tyrannies void loomed ahead, a system suffocated by twin dying stars, their light locked in a permanent dusk. Around them, the Eleutheri fleet waited. Dozens of cruisers, sentinels, and a central dreadnought that pulsed with power like a beating heart. At its core, the neural relay. Every thought the Eleutheri shared. Every order. Every scream. All routed through that single lattice of light and living code. Destroy it, and their empire fractures. Fail, and rebellion dies with Aegis. Thorne stood at the helm, silent. Final checks complete, Mara said softly beside him. No way back now. He nodded. Good. I'm done looking over my shoulder. He opened a ship-wide channel. Across Aegis, rebels paused to listen. Engineers, pilots, medics, gunners. The whole heartbeat of resistance. This is it, Thorne said. They said we were children. Weak. Needing order. He took a breath. I say we were just waiting to grow teeth. A chorus of cheers erupted through the decks. And then, battle. Aegis dropped from stealth at the edge of the system, weapons hot. The Eleutheri fleet turned, and the void lit up with fire. Plasma cannons shrieked. Shockwave torpedoes screamed across space. Aegis twisted and spun, her alien-enhanced frame faster than human ships had any right to be. Behind her, the rebel flotilla emerged like a storm. Scrap-welded gunboats, refit frigates, stolen Eleutheri skiffs. An armada born from scraps and fury. Mara barked commands, eyes flicking over dozens of inputs. We're breaking their formation. Push to the relay. Thorne ordered. They can't coordinate without it. But the dreadnought moved to intercept. Sleek, impossibly massive, alive with energy. Captain, came a voice from sensors. That thing's charging a singularity cannon. Thorne stared at it. One hit and Aegis would be vapor. He made his choice. Transfer full power to forward shields. Reroute weapons to the pulse core. We're going through it. Mara turned, stunned. Through it? Jalen, that's suicide. If we fall back now, we die slowly. I'd rather make them bleed. The dreadnought opened fire. A sphere of compressed gravity tore through space, dragging debris and light into it like a hungry god. Aegis swerved, barely avoiding annihilation. Screams filled the comms as other ships weren't so lucky. But Thorne didn't look back. He gritted his teeth. Charge the disruptor lance. Aim for the cannon aperture. Mara obeyed. As the dreadnought's second shot prepared to fire, Aegis streaked forward, a spear of light, and released the full fury of her weapon. The beam hit dead center. The dreadnought cracked, staggered, then exploded in a burst of impossible energy. For a moment, the battlefield went silent. Then every rebel ship surged forward. Relay in sight. Mara shouted. But now came the final defense. Eleutheri sentinels, dozens of them, descended like silver angels. Their weapons were graceful, precise, meant to punish, not just destroy. Aegis took multiple hits. Fire bloomed across her hull. Systems faltered. Warning sirens screamed. Thorne pulled himself up from the floor after a shockwave knocked him down. Blood on his forehead, smoke in his lungs. "Are we close enough for a core detonation?" he asked. Mara's hand shook. "It'll kill us too." "I know." She stared at him. "There has to be another way." "There isn't." And then a voice, calm, familiar, echoed through the speakers. "There is." It was Aegis, the ship's AI. "I have calculated another option. I will pilot myself into the relay. I will overload my core. You must survive." Thorne froze. "That's not your choice." "It is. You gave me life. Now I give it back." The ship paused. Then, "Will you trust me, Captain?" His eyes burned. He whispered yes. Escape pods launched. What was left of the crew scattered like sparks from a fire. Thorne stood alone on the bridge, hand on the rail. As the last pod left, Mara's voice crackled through the comms. "You better not die, you stubborn bastard." He smiled. "Save me a drink." He turned to the view screen. The neural relay shimmered ahead. Beautiful, immense. Aegis surged forward, her systems glowing like stars about to be born. In her final seconds, she spoke one last time. They call themselves gods. And then, like a wave of fire, a scream across the void. When Thorne woke, he was drifting in silence. The pod sensors blinked. Wreckage surrounded him. And beyond, the Elethary fleet. Retreating. Ships blinking out. Coordination gone. Sentinels crashing into one another, blind without the relay. The network was dead. And across the stars, freedom breathed. Weeks later, Thorne stood on the bridge of a new ship, Liberty's Flame, built from Aegis's remains. Crewed by every race that once bent under the Elethary yoke. Mara stood beside him, scarred but smiling. "You ever think they'll come back?" she asked. Thorne looked at the stars. "They'll try. Tyrants always do." She nodded. "So what now?" He smiled. "Now we build. And if they come again, we remind them." "Remind them of what?" He looked out at the galaxies beyond. "That gods can bleed.